Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Recruitment Uncensored. I am live today, so I know for the last episode, the last show, it was pre-recorded. Today is full-blown live, so yeah, I'm excited to be back and excited to be live. And I know I say this every fortnight, but I have not done a show ever, and I think we're on episodes 50 or something like that now, that has been focused on this subject today. So I'm really looking forward to chatting to my guest, Tom from Toledo, about how you can stop bypassing TA and basically earn trust, not just fees. And there is I know a lot of people that really struggle with this and come up against a lot of blocks, problems, and lose business as a result of not doing things in a better way. So we have got shitloads to cover off this morning, so I'm just going to jump into question one, Tom, because I know you've got loads to talk about, loads of value. I thought this is an important place to start because I think for a lot of us, we sometimes in the agency world think that we're the best and we don't make any mistakes and it's not our problem. But I think it is important for us to hear from you, who sees it from the other side. What mistakes do recruiters make when they're trying to win business and deal with TA teams? What goes wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I just want to caveat here, Kate, right? It's not all recruiters, but it is a lot of them, right? And I have worked with a lot of recruiters over the 15 years of being in TA. I think there's a lot of mistakes agencies are making, but there's a lot of misconceptions as well. Like the biggest misconception that I think is holding back recruiters is the fact that TA are blockers, right? An extension of that TA don't use agencies. Yes, there'll be TA teams out there who have a hard stance, right? We don't use agencies. You'll hear it, right? You'll hear it when you're reaching out to them on LinkedIn. And you're not going to convert them, right? Just move on, right? But there are TA teams out there. There are heads of TA out there who are including recruitment agencies and third-party recruitment companies in their TA strategy, especially in 2025, right? It's in 2025, TA teams are having to do more with less, right? So what that means is they're going through hiring spikes and hiring drops, right? So we've got a hiring spike of 3 to 6 months. So they're not going to add permanent TA partners into their team because after 6 months they're going to have to make redundancies, and TA is suffering already. We've gone through a big sort of spate of redundancies in TA. It's part of the reason why recruitment agencies are struggling to win business, because TA, and at the same time, TA people are struggling to get jobs, right? But back to your question, right? I love this question because there are a few classic agency moves that almost guarantee that you're going to get ignored by TA. And the frustrating part is, your present company excluded, a lot of these are still being taught as best practice, as they have been over the last sort of 20 years. The big one is, of course, bypassing TA, right? And yes, you'll get loads of quick wins by bypassing TA. A lot of agencies use it as their strategy. You go straight to the hiring manager. The hiring manager has one pain point. The hiring manager has a pain point of, we need CVs, right? So you go to the hiring manager with a CV of their dreams, they are going to engage with you. But this causes disruption, right? You'll think it's the shortcut to the process. And I get it, right? It can seem like quite a smart play. But what the agency doesn't realize is that the damage it causes behind the scenes. That hiring manager might be in the middle of a process with TA, a relationship with TA that's been running for weeks, right? We've already worked with the hiring manager closely as TA on the workforce plans. We've already worked on getting approvals across the line. And that's been hard, especially in 2025. And actually, approvals is where agencies can come in and add value. I might talk about that later on. So we've already aligned on approvals. We've prioritized the roles. And as TA, we are headhunters as well. Most of us, some of the best headhunters I know are TA. We're sourcing candidates, right? We are spending time going out to using Juicebox, using AI, using LinkedIn Recruiter, using our network, sourcing candidates, and we've already agreed a shortlist date with that hiring manager where we're going to sit down with them. Right, you're not going to hear from me for four days, but let's sit down and I'm going to present the candidates that I've interviewed. So when I get an email or a Slack message from a hiring manager to say, "Oh look, this agency's just sent me a CV. They are great, brilliant. That solves your problem, but I've just wasted 4 days. What's the agency? Right, okay, we'll probably end up paying their fee." But I tell you what, we're not partnering with them. When I'm not giving them any more future business, they'll most likely get blacklisted. So it's not that bypassing TA never works. It rarely builds anything sustainable. And in this market, what you need to focus on as an agency, I think, is focusing on that sustainable partnership, that repeat business. And that's not it. Right? You'll get a quick win, but then you'll be sitting thinking, right, where's our next placement coming from?
Yeah, you want the longevity. And I think obviously I do a lot of business development training with agencies. Majority of the agencies I work with, their clients tend to not have big TA teams. They might have HR might get involved at some point, or they might have one person. They don't have big teams, but either way, normally for me, I suggest to them, we need to be speaking to the hiring managers, because you need to know everything about what's going on in the team, skill sets, all of this stuff, the lay of the land, all of that. But also, if there's someone else involved, sometimes it's not even a TA team. It's they have now sort of master vendors and all of that stuff. They also need to know who you are as well, because like you've just alluded to, if they don't like you, know you, trust you, all those things, that partnership is not going to happen. It's just not. It's not going to happen. So I'm sort of the mindset of, you can't ever not speak to the hiring managers, because again, if they don't know who you are, that's difficult. But again, you can't go pissing one team off and not you can't. Pissing people off is not going to work, basically.
100%. And when I've successfully worked with agencies, I've never ring fenced an agency from a hiring manager, because actually that's disruptive to me, right? It's just going the right way, be an extension of my TA team. And the fact that you've got clients who are approaching their clients who have smaller TA teams, that's perfect, because they can reach out and say, look, we appreciate you're running lean at the moment. We're not just going to come in and be transactional. A mistake that agencies make is sort of assuming that they are the only answer to headhunting, to providing CVs, right? But if they go in and say, right, we are not just the answer to providing CVs, we're an extension of your TA team. The worst one in the world for me, right, back to your original point there, is as a TA person, as a head of TA, when I'm dealing with multiple agencies, they're siloed, they're just providing CVs through the ATS. There's no communication. I actually hate that as a TA. And I know that's a big frustration for agencies. So for agencies, have to do one or two things, right? Get the relationship correct at the start, be a true partner, so they're not just an agency chucking CVs into ATSs, and this is really hard to hear for agencies, if they do win business, and it's frustrating for agencies because they're putting CVs into a black hole, they're never hearing back, I would almost treat that as not a client, and I'd walk away. And I know a lot of agencies do, and I'd walk away and try and focus on that real business where there's that real sort of coming together partnership. Because at the end of the day, I want I want the agencies to be part of my hiring manager brief with me, right? In fact, if I've got a good relationship with an agency, I might say to the agency, look, I'm briefing this role with a hiring manager. I personally haven't had data scientists, for example. I fucking hate recruiting data scientists. I will always go for an agency for that, right? I have to brief this hiring manager. I have to talk about their vacancy. Could you come in and support me on the brief? I can introduce you to the hiring manager, and you can ask your questions, and you can maybe train me as a TA on what better questions to ask during that kind of hiring manager brief. That's a partnership. And then I might, because of process, because of GDPR, whatever, I might have the agency have to submit their CV through the ATS, but I'll always say email the hiring manager as well, right? But with great power comes great responsibility. You've got the hiring manager's email address, but please, please, please don't pester them for feedback, right? Because at the end of the day, my goal is the same as your goal. It's not a financial goal. It's I want to fill this job goal. So I will be chasing the hiring manager for feedback on your behalf. So the biggest mistake,
let me do that, basically.
A biggest mistake is an agency just chasing all the time for feedback. And that's why it's so important for the agency to TA relationship, the TA to hiring manager relationship, to always talking about delivery dates, right? Always work to a plan with dates. And that's something that we do internally, and that's something agencies definitely need to do more of.
I think the biggest thing that's jumping out at me here is essentially the qualification that, say you were dealing with a client where you go straight to the hiring manager and you're qualifying the role and all of that, and you're building that relationship, you're trying to build a partnership. You need to do that with the TA team, because you need to have need to establish boundaries. You know, for example, like you've just, and it's all about effective communication.
Yeah.
So, like you just said, some TA teams might be different. They might say, you know, but it might be like, right, well, I'm going to always chase feedback. But if you don't hear from me about how many, you know, so you both know, right, these are the parameters that we're working to. This is how we're going to build a relationship together. And even in those early days when it's just the BD part, like trying to build a relationship, it's finding out how that TA team works. To communicate to all the, it's just, I think that's where the breakdown comes a lot of the time with BD in general, is people forget about the relationship and the communication, and that is super important. You sort of you gave a little bit of it there, but I'm really interested to ask you this, because there were some things there that I thought, you know what, I actually didn't even think of it that way. So like you said, meeting with the hiring manager and the timescales you work to, a lot of us don't know that in agency. So yeah, we'll sort of share your little secrets about like what is the process like behind the scenes.
Absolutely, and this is part of the reason why I set up Tolevo, right? I'm fairly certain that I'm one of few, if not the only TA person stupid enough, I don't know, to set up, you know, a training, coaching community where I'm giving away the TA playbook that, you know, TA teams have never given them, right? Because to be able to sell to us, you need to understand our process, right? And that may sound boring, but it's taking a step back, right? So I've always said you've got recruitment and then you've got talent acquisition, right? So recruitment is a small part of talent acquisition. It's probably an important part of talent acquisition. So what's the TA process really like behind the scenes? So typically, and I talk about this, I could talk about this for hours. I talk about this in the Tolevo approach. There's 14 stages, right? So typically up to 14 stages. So from the start, it starts with workforce planning, right? So workforce planning can look very different in a startup. I'm actually hosting a session, live workshop next week within Tolevo about what startups need. So workforce planning looks different in like a large corporation and anything else in between. So you've got workforce planning, then you've got prioritization, because a lot of hiring managers come to you and say, right, I need 20 engineers, right, tomorrow. And then you've just got to push back and say, that's fine, but are you going to be able to onboard all those 20 engineers, right? Let's look at seniority. Do you need to hire the leads first, the managers first, and then trickle in the engineers, right? And then, so that's all part of the prioritization. Then you've got approvals, and then you've got hiring manager briefs, and you've got the employer branding. You've got to write the job adverts, because most job adverts are utter shit. Mitch Sullivan will agree with that. And that's even before you get to recruitment. So there's like 6 or 7 processes before you get to recruitment, right? But here's the thing, all those 6 or 7 processes, recruitment agencies can add value, at every single stage. Yeah, they're not going to charge a percentage for a fee or whatever, but they can add value, and they can actually commercialize that part of the process if they are seen as true partners from
which
day one.
so many don't do.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it is a numbers game, right? I see you talk about sending cold emails all the time on LinkedIn, and to a certain extent, it's a numbers game, right? You send 1,000 cold emails that start with, I'm managing director, or I'm recruitment consultant at Acme Recruitment. We are specialists in data scientists. We are the only option when it comes to candidates. We have exclusive candidate pools, blah, 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 blah. You send out 1,000 of those, you might get one conversation, two conversations, I don't know. But if you send 1,000 emails when you're talking about TA processes, or we've helped clients get approvals across the lines, we've assisted clients scope out interview frameworks, we've done this, that, and the other. It is still a numbers game because it depends where that TA person is at that stage. But I think you will get more response. You'll get more response. You'll get more conversations. And it's about, at this stage, it's not about selling your service. It's about opening the door and having conversation.
Yeah. And what a great, if you're going to do the wild thing and pick up the phone, what a great conversation starter. To be questioned, what a nice conversation to be having about, like what you just said, to put in an email instead of ringing around and basically asking if you've got any jobs that I can fill today.
Absolutely. And when it comes to BD, right, I have to be honest, I think maybe when I was last head of TA role for a startup a few years ago, I might have got one cold call, right? But if I'd have got a cold call from a recruitment consultant and they said, I'm calling from Hayes. We specialize in blah, 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 blah. I'll be like, okay, look, calm down. I don't have any time for this. But if I got a cold call from a recruiter, that's something like, right? Hey, Tom, look, I'll be honest, I am a recruitment consultant, but don't panic. I'm not going to try and convince you to take one of my candidates. I just want to understand your process. I just want to understand what you're doing.
I want to learn.
I'll be like, okay, let's have a chat then. Probably, right? If I was in the market for buying agency services, or if I was absolutely balls to the wall busy, right? Another mistake, another part of the process that agencies can help with is, so an agency, correct me if I'm wrong, right? So an agency would typically see a job that's advertised and think, oh, got candidates for that. I'm going to send a candidate to the hiring manager or the TA team, right? I see you're advertising for XYZ. I've got this fantastic candidate. They are XYZ, blah, 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 blah. My pain point as a TA at that stage, if I'm advertising a role in 2025, my pain point is not extra candidates. That actually causes me an issue. They could be the best candidate in the world. But also it puts my nose out of joint because it assumes that I can't headhunt. That I'm advertising a role, yes, but I've been headhunting for that role as well. So what can an agency do in that situation? Oh, I see you're advertising for this role. Appreciate you've probably got tons of applications. This is how I've helped a previous client when they've been overwhelmed with inbound applications. Appreciate you're running lean at the moment. Could I come into your offices, or could we, set up a couple of hours Zoom call when I'm actually helping you? I'm GDPR and internal processes allowing, could I jump onto your ATS and help you manage your inbound, screen candidates, screen out candidates? That's more important than screening in candidates. That's what agencies don't do, screen out candidates. It's frustrating. And help you curate a shortlist. Now, you can offer that as a day rate, or you could offer that as a free of charge service and cost you a couple of hours. But then guess who I'm going to come to next time I need agencies?
Well, and you trust in their expertise then, don't you? Because it's sort of, you've had a snapshot into what it's like to work with them. I think for me, I'm so fed up of consultants just going on to Indeed or Total Jobs or whatever, right? And looking at the live jobs and chasing them. And again, you sort of alluded to it there, is that why not just look at the sort of companies you want to work with? Yeah, okay, some of them might be hiring. And if they've got a TA team, okay, well, I need to try and build a relationship with them. I'm going to ring them and have a chat, or I'm going to try and find out what they struggle with, or I'm going to try and learn their process behind the scenes, or do you know, find out what are their pain points where I can help, because everyone's going to be different. It goes back to sort of the communication thing, doesn't it? But yeah, and also I can imagine with a TA team, if you've got an adept, that 1,000,001 other recruiters are just basically trying to do, everyone's trying to do the same thing, send you CVs or pick up that role. And it's just like a sea of annoyance, probably. Do you know what I mean?
This is it. Our inboxes are an absolute battlefield at the moment, right? And it's all the same thing. You know, I talk about this in the free
and they're
stuff.
all saying they're all saying they're different, but
Yeah,
they're not, because they're all doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's category cliches, right? If you've got, even before you start reaching out to TA or hiring managers or anyone, right? You've got to do three things, right? You've got to work out what your unique value proposition is, right? Work out who your ICP is. And more than that, you've got to understand your ICP's strengths, weaknesses, anxieties. I talk about this a lot. The CEO of a startup who's trying to secure Series A, Series B funding will have different anxieties about recruitment than a CEO of a small to mid-sized business. A CEO of a startup will have different anxieties to a head of TA. It's about understanding that, and then understanding your industries, recruitment agencies, industries, category cliches, and not using them, because everyone is using them. What I would encourage agencies to do is do a bit of category cliche bingo, right? Do a bit of a sort of assessment of cold emails that you've sent out over the last few months. Build a list of your category cliches and tick them off one by one. You'll be really surprised and probably a little bit embarrassed. Even the website, right? I tell you a category cliche sort of phrase that I'm hating at the moment, and I think, and I'm rambling now, I think it comes from AI and ChatGPT, is top talent. I'm seeing top talent everywhere, and I don't remember seeing the phrase top tier talent or top talent pre-ChatGPT.
I don't know. I've seen that for I've seen it for a while, but yeah, it's probably got worse because ChatGPT is probably honing in on it.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up question 3 because we've sort of naturally moved on to that.
Yeah.
You know, what can recruiters start doing to build better relationships with TA teams? So we've sort of started talking about that, haven't we? But like what, and by the way, I forgot to say at the start, anyone watching, I'm sure you've got the common sense to do it anyway. I forgot to say, chuck your questions and comments into the thing. So if you have got anything that you're burning to ask, just chuck it in and we'll cover it off. But yeah, what can recruiters start doing to build better relationships with TA teams? And I love the words we've got there, relationships, because Jesus Christ, if people this job is about relationships, right? So it just baffles me how people think it's not important.
I think this is quite an easy. Apologies, my wife just came in to pick up something she didn't know that recorded or live or whatever. So two things. I'll keep this short and sweet because a lot of it we've covered, right? Is have a TA first mindset, right? Be empathetic to their world, right? So even before you start asking questions about their pain points, you need to understand their pain points. And the more conversations you have with TA people, the more you're going to be asking the same questions, right? And you'll be understanding their world by asking the same questions to multiple different sort of heads of TA or TA partners, right? But the number one thing is listen more and be patient. Be really, really patient. If you get a no, we don't use agencies, don't push. I know over 20 years, recruitment agencies. I was in agency recruitment in 2006, right? And, I was taught, if you get an objection, we don't use agencies. Really push hard, push back, push hard. Don't push hard, because I think, and this is going to go against everything, right? Because I think you'll just frustrate.
I think there's a difference between pushing, which I wouldn't suggest, and being inquisitive and having a conversation about not necessarily saying why, but finding out why. And again, it's about, like you mentioned earlier, about like just learning about that process, what's going on behind the scenes. I would encourage people to do that, because we don't use agencies is not always it's an objection over a rejection a lot of the time, and sometimes it's not even the real reason. It's I haven't got time to speak to you right now, or do you know what I mean? So but pushing, no, like I don't get it when people go in the aggressive, you need to speak to me now, and you need to, do you know what I mean? Like that doesn't work, does it?
The biggest thing is, right, and I've done this before, and I have actually said, and you're right, it's objection versus rejection. I've got a lot to learn on this side, right? I have said to a lot of agencies over my years, we don't use agencies, when actually the truth is we do use agencies. Your message hasn't convinced me that you're the agency I want to use, because you're too transactional. So if you start offering value in your message, ask the right questions, being empathetic, you'll get fewer we don't use agencies, and you'll get more, look, that role is sorted for now, thanks for reaching out, but let's keep in touch. You come back and you say, okay, let's keep in touch. Look, let's just organize a 30-minute virtual coffee. This is how I've helped previous clients in their TA process, or we don't use agencies. Okay, you might not use agencies for recruiting. You might not even be recruiting right now. You might be stuck in approvals. I can help with that. If you're struggling to get a data scientist salary signed off because the CEO or CFO is saying it's too high, draw some market data for that.
Yeah, amazing.
Don't send them a salary survey. Just say, do you want some market data? I can go away and do an hour.
I can find it out for you. Let's work together on this.
Yeah, I can find out. Or, okay, we've just done a batch of recruitment. Okay, where are you in the process? Are you onboarding? Oh yeah, we're onboarding like 50 people in the next 3 months. Well, how can we help?
What's your onboarding process?
What's your onboarding? Can we
tell me about it?
Can we help send out I don't know, not contracts, but I don't know, survey packs, or can we do some post-hire evaluation for you? Oh yeah, actually, we are looking at post-hire evaluation services, but I haven't had time to look into them. Yeah, maybe you can help and tell us what's worked in the past, right? But it's all about building really, really slowly, right, and taking time.
Yeah. So I'm going to come back to you for a top tip, and I could easily, honestly, if we had more time, I could talk to you about all of this for at least another half an hour, maybe more, because there's so much to unpick. But I just want to quickly do, before I come back to you, a roundup of the next show, which is in 2 weeks' time. So as per, I've got it all written down on here, so don't forget. I can't even read my own writing. The 28th of May. Normal time, 12:30. I've got Emily Thomas coming on of Thrive Recruitment Marketing. Emily lives by me, although she's got an American accent. She lives in the same town as me, so she's in Bridgend. She's an amazing. I've seen her speak at an event. She's amazing, and I know she works with some agencies I know, and she's fantastic. So she's coming on to speak about what recruitment agencies get wrong when it comes to branding, but also what they get right. And we're going to go into how it's about how you not just about how you look with branding, about how you lead as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to get her on, because she did a bit of a talk about this at a Rat Connect event in Cardiff in February, and it was amazing. So tune in. That'll come out next week, the event. So tune in for that one for sure. Right, let's come back to you for your top tip, Tom. Oh, that right? No, it wasn't a rhyme. What's it called when three words start with
alliteration, Kate?
Alliteration. That's it. Right. Stop obsessing about the financial outcome. Now, I'm on board with this, but just explain what you mean, because for everyone watching, because this is really important.
Do you know what? I've got to shout out Nitin Sharma for this one, because I've been panicking a little bit over the last few months, and this is where it's come from, Nitin, right? So it's essentially that, right? Stop chasing the commission. Stop obsessing about the financial outcome. Obviously, this doesn't come across when you approach TA, but it could, right? If you're really, really pushing, right? I tell you, obsess about the quality of service, obsess about the extra value, and obsess about your clients, right? Obsess about their needs and their pain points, and a financial outcome will come. That's it in a nutshell, right? Just take a step back from, and I know, look, it's easy for me to say, right? And it's really hard to do when your agencies typically have been a heavily KPI driven industry. There's things that, from a KPI point of view, your frustration for me is when an agency sends a 4 out of 10 candidate, right? And for me, I'm thinking you're just hitting your CVs, KPIs, or you want me to reject it, or you're just hoping that it will get through, or some agencies have every Friday, right? If you have sent 10 CVs this week, you get a 4-pack of Stella, or so people are chasing that kind of thing. But for me, it's less is more. Focus on the quality, focus on the value, and stop obsessing about the invoice you're going to send.
Do you know the key thing for me, right, that I've had flowing through my brain this whole conversation is that everything we're talking about is what hopefully they're trying to achieve when there's a company with no TA team and they're just going straight to the hiring managers. So the key thing for me here is, for any of you recruiters, is just remember that you've got to treat the TA teams as a client. And all the things that you do with the hiring manager, you need to do with them. It's no different. It's absolutely no different. And like you said at the start, and I think I've been guilty in this in the past of seeing TA teams as blockers. And actually, it's the same as a gate. In fact, it's the same as a gatekeeper. And I say this to the companies I go into: you need to treat them as a client. So it's the same with the TA teams.
Yeah.
And if you do that and focus on, like you just said, obsess over the quality of the service and partnering and a strategic partnership, then you can't really go wrong, can you?
100%. Absolutely.
Right, that has absolutely flown by. We're at 2 minutes past 1. Anybody that's watched today, if you are an agency recruiter, I massively encourage you to slide into Tom's DMs and find out about Tolevo, because we've just had a tiny little snapshot today of what he offers on that platform. LinkedIn's the best way for people to sort of find out more, isn't it?
You'll find me. There is another Tom Brown in recruitment, and me and him have had conversations, and he's Tom Brown too. But you'll find me quite easily.
I mean, Tom is tagged on the event anyway, so it's easy to find him because he's there as a speaker on the event. So I'd massively encourage you to do that. Find out more about the platform. It's amazing training, so go out and do that. Anybody that commented and we didn't get a chance to bring it up, I know I had a couple come in towards the end that were quite lengthy. We'll come to after. Do not worry about that. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Tom.
That's all right, Kate. Thank you for having me. It's been really good.
No problem. To be honest, I'll have to get you back on because there's more that we need to talk about. So he will be coming back on, don't worry. But I will see you in a couple of weeks with Emily. And if you want to watch this back, this is a key thing to remember because we've covered a lot. You can watch it on LinkedIn for, I think, a good couple of weeks, but it's on YouTube as well. So if you want to go back and use this to better your BD processes, you can do that way. Right, I've waffled and I've got loads out really quickly, but we're done. I will see you in a couple of weeks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.